Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out. Click subscribe and show your support. While you're at it, if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you enable the button, the bell, so you get notified every time a new episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast goes up. And also, check out our Discord channel. We're on Discord, Fro Wrestling Podcast. Check us out. All means of social media and whatever streaming service you're using right now to listen to this episode, by all means, use the chat feature if you'd like to get some comments into our shows, or go to the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Send us your questions, your comments, anything you want us to get into one of our shows, and we'll be happy to get our audience actively involved in one of the episodes of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. If you want your name in the shout-outs, you want to be a part of our Patreon family like Mike and Hatfield, then absolutely sign up for the Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget, we got loyalty rewards. Any $15 a month contributor, you get to co-host an episode with me on one of our live shows. Any $10 a month contributors, you guys get your opportunity to have your name put into a hat and also possibly host an episode with myself of one of our live shows. Tonight, we got some reactions to Survivor Series, NXT Takeover, big WWE weekend, and all the other tidbits that are going on in the world of professional wrestling. Make sure, if you've never stopped by the Fro Wrestling Podcast before, go to our homepage, www.frowrestling.com. Check it out. Great way to see what's coming to a future episode, come up with questions, things you want to talk to us about, and become an active part of the show. Just do me a favor. Tell me who you are so I can give you credit for your questions in an episode with an absolutely necessary shout out. Too many people give me questions, don't tell me who they are. It'd be really nice to be able to get your name out there along with your questions and comments. So tonight, Raw is live. We're broadcasting while Raw is still on the air. We'll address the Raw reactions in a later episode, but right now, gotta talk NXT TakeOver and Survivor Series. Two incredible shows. Look, I get it. A lot of people have been frustrated with WWE booking lately. They haven't been as impressed with WWE's creativity for a couple years now. But NXT TakeOver was solid, top to bottom. I don't care what match you're looking at. And then Survivor Series. Look, I know there's people who weren't real happy with the way the main event went down. Some people are upset that they thought NXT got pushed too hard. I really don't care about either of those. I thought the main event delivered for what it should have been to begin with. Now, I would have had Baszler win no matter who was in the main event position of the night. The women's match, I would have had Baszler win no matter what was going on. However, I do think they should have built up either the SmackDown or the Raw brand. When you think about it, at the start of this year, Raw was the flagship show for WWE. Now you could make the argument that it's the third brand. Not that its viewership is third, because clearly it's not. It still has viewership comparable to SmackDown. But that the emphasis of the company seems to be on SmackDown and NXT right now, and they seem to be letting Raw go by the wayside. I don't like that, especially with the long history Raw has on the USA Network. Now, when we look at the matches at Survivor Series, I'm not sure which matches you could have gone a different way with and made it believable for Raw or SmackDown to have won the night, or at least tied the night. I don't think anybody would have complained too much if somehow Bayley walked away with a win in the women's championship or the women champions match. I think that would have helped. Give them the tie. So you know, if you have to later on, say at the Royal Rumble, you could have some crossover with the different brands, but doing it the way they did it, I feel like it left too much to NXT, and that's a brand who you've built up for the last several years as being a developmental territory, and now you let the developmental company defeat your biggest stars in your two main roster brands. A little weird. I get trying to compete with AEW. I understand that, and I know that's a focal point of the program right now, but you have to remember your core audience. What are people who don't tune into AEW, who don't tune into Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, New Japan, whatever you tune into? What about the people who are just the mainstream fan, which is the largest percentage of WWE's fan base? If you take out every single viewer of All Elite Wrestling and take them out of the equation for WWE viewing, you still have about 1.5 million to 2 million people every week that tune into WWE only. And those people are now introduced to characters that are supposedly better than the ones they've been watching because a lot of those people don't watch NXT either because they're not the go get the network people. Remember, the network's got like 1.5 million subscribers, and they're drawing 2.5 to 3 million people a week on their main programming. So what that tells you is there's a lot of people don't watch the network. They don't know who NXT is. A lot of them don't. I know you and I do because we listen to this show and other shows and look at every website there is to look at, and we keep up on all the news. But a lot of people don't do that. The main percentage of WWE's audience doesn't do that. So when you put NXT over your two main brands, it sends a message to all those people who are mainstream listeners who don't watch NXT, AEW, or anything like that. And you make them feel like they're getting a completely different experience than what they probably should get. And it could, in fact, hurt your business on those other two brands. So I'm not a big fan of that. However, like I said earlier, I don't know what match you would change. They all came off so well. Maybe the women's team Survivor Series match, maybe that's when you flip and give that to SmackDown for the tie. If you want to leave the win with Baszler, I don't care how you do it. You should have made sure one of those major brands either tied or won the night, just for sensibility about what it is you've been building for the last several years. Now, coming out of Survivor Series and NXT weekend, the other big to-do is about Mario Ranallo and Corey Graves. Graves giving Ranallo some attitude on Twitter about the amount of time he talks versus the other two commentators that were on NXT TakeOver. Now, look, I've heard people all day jumping all over Corey Graves for his comments, but his comments were legitimate. If you actually roll back the show, and I'm not debating, Ranallo is probably the best in the business right now, bar none. That's not in debate. The issue is that when you have someone like Ranallo who's doing what he's doing, you can't do it as the only person in the broadcast booth. You've got other people that you have out there with you. And what happens is you don't hear Beth Phoenix almost ever. You don't hear a lot of, the 3-man booth that NXT has become known for. You don't see that. And that's a little bit of a problem because he talks so much. Corey Graves' comments are true. People don't like it because Mauro Ranallo has a history of mental health concerns. He deleted his Twitter account, and now you got Dave Meltzer giving Corey Graves a hard time. Corey Graves firing back. Rusev even jumped in, giving Corey Graves' private phone number. Feel free to look it up on Twitter if you want to text Corey Graves. But I think it's so blown out of proportion. I think you should be able to give constructive criticism, which to me, that's exactly what that was. That was passive-aggressive constructive criticism. Mauro Ranallo needs to learn how to incorporate his co-broadcasters a little better. And he doesn't right now. And I'm not dumping on Ranallo. I love hearing him. There's nothing better than hearing his energy and his contribution. But there are other people in the booth. And I want to hear them too. So, we'll have to wait to see how that shakes out. Ranallo apparently decided he was not going to go to Survivor Series. Is this one of those things where every time somebody critiques him or criticizes him, suddenly he's going to want to take a day off? And I find that to be a little too much. I don't know that I would put up with that if I was WWE. No matter how good he is on commentary. Nobody is perfect. Nobody. Jim Ross in his heyday had bad nights where he did bad calls. Bobby Heenan, when he would work with Gorilla Monsoon, they had bad nights. Jesse Ventura and several others. Heck, if you want to, go with Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff when they were in the booze. They had many. And the issue is you should be able to have somebody critique your work just like Graves and be able to get better from it, not shut down because of it. Okay, Corey Graves was a wrestling fan first. And so when he's critiquing, he's not just doing it as a fellow commentator. He's doing it as a fan of the product. And we have to be open to that understanding that, yes, could he maybe have said something to him without putting it on social media? Absolutely. But we're in 2019 now. That's where everybody communicates. I think it's ridiculous, but that's the reality. That's where people communicate. So I think that's a big part of why we had an issue. Now, let's get on to the rest of the news for the week. So, and let's wrap up Survivor Series. No issue with any of the winners. I don't think anybody thought any championships were changing hands, so that was no surprise. I think the tag team match should have gone on the main card and moved something else down, but whatever. All in all, the program top to bottom was fantastic. I thought it was really well done. So, kudos to WWE for actually getting something right for a change, at least as far as the matches and the quality of the in-ring action. I'll tell you what I really wish. I wish AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura put on that kind of show back when they were feuding for the WWE Championship, because that was a lot closer to the dream match that we all wanted to see a long time ago. So have to keep our eye on and see what happens with the storylines the next couple weeks. Supposedly now the Survivor Series is over. Triple H has said that the brands are going to, firm up quite a bit and become more segmented. And I appreciate that, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, CM Punk in the news, as we all know, returning on backstage last week, coming out, and he, made it clear that he's not with WWE. And then on Twitter, he ruled out a Royal Rumble appearance just about universally. On backstage, he made it clear that there's several obstacles that they would have to overcome for him to make a wrestling return. But even by commenting about it, makes it bizarre. And I know people were saying, Triple H was in the news and he said, he's had no conversations with CM Punk. Think about that for a moment. What if he did? Is he supposed to come out and tell you that? Because if he comes out and Triple H says, Punk and I talk every day. You know what that does? It means that we can't get that big surprise, because then everybody speculates, it'll be at the Royal Rumble, or he'll come in at WrestleMania, or maybe he'll interfere at the Elimination Chamber and then he'll be set up for a WrestleMania match. I don't want to know. I don't want to know if Punk's coming back to the ring until he walks through the curtain. I saw today that they want to have Stone Cold Steve Austin interview him for his show. Why? That takes away the luster of if he returns to WWE's ring. See, right now he's with Fox. But if you do the Stone Cold show, now you really are with WWE. Understanding that Steve probably finances his own show, you don't have Punk on that show until after the major pop when he returns at some point. You can't do that. You waste an incredible opportunity for one of the biggest reactions, an organic, genuine reaction of fans. The next time they're in Chicago, that's when Punk should come back, if he's going to come back at all. Now, Vince McMahon apparently does not have as much input as he would like over what Punk can do on backstage. I think it'll be interesting to see how often Punk's on the show and see what his conversations are. I loved his first full episode. I thought he did a good job, and I loved it that he was being brutally honest with WWE. I thought it was kind of weird that he kept looking at Paige, trying to get her support for his perspectives. But whatever. I thought he really did make the show more interesting. Now let's hope that the viewership stays up. But in the meantime, we'll have to wait and see. Cody Rhodes on a binge lately. He has acquired Dusty Rhodes' name and copyright. He grabbed Slamboree and Bash at the Beach. And at this point, we all have found out January 15th, AEW Bash at the Beach will be a big show. And then the January 22nd episode of Dynamite will be on the Chris Jericho Rockin' Rager at Sea. So a lot of things going on with AEW. I saw that Eric Bischoff reacted to the Bash at the Beach and Slamboree copyrights, and he felt like they're bringing up the past. They keep talking about how there's a new trendy thing in wrestling, and then you go out and you buy these old copyrights to WCW concepts. Now, don't get me wrong. They did Battle Bowl as well, and I'm okay with them using Battle Bowl because that's a concept that I think everybody has forgotten about. I loved the original Battle Bowl concept. If they bring that back, I'm cool with it. I love the way they did their Casino Battle Royal back at All In, or All Out. What was that? Double or Nothing. I thought that was great the way they did the Battle Royal. It was very different. It was a fresh take on an old-fashioned idea. I was cool with that. If you want to use elements of Slamboree or Bash at the Beach or Battle Bowl, I'm fine with that. But I don't know that I would use the names because that makes people remember something that's long gone. And it's a company that was defeated by your arch rival. Why would you want to compare yourself to the company that lost the Monday Night Wars? I just think that seems very strange. I am very excited about Dynamite being recorded on the Rockin' Rager at Sea. I think it'll make for an interesting production value. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Still some conflict about officially whether Adam Page has left the Elite or not. I think the Elite kind of have been left in the dust anyways. They don't talk about them a lot on AEW. Yes, I know they still do the Being the Elite episodes. Supposedly the Inner Circle is going to invade that this week. But I really wish they would go away from the Elite. The Bullet Club, the Elite, all that stuff, and just move on with their careers in a much more positive way. It seems like we're hanging on to something that you don't need anymore. You've got a successful company now. And I say that only after 8 weeks, but let's be real. They are more successful than any other wrestling program since WCW by a landslide. So I consider them to be a success already. Whether they'll be able to sustain it for years to come, who knows? But I'm getting more and more positive feel about that. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think this Adam Page stuff, it sounds like he's done with the Elite. Probably a good thing because we need to build his character as a legitimate main eventer. He is a stud in the ring. So hopefully they find a way to really elevate him now that he's now not going to be a part of that group. I wanted to touch because did have, and again, I said at the top of the show, please, I'm begging you, give me your name when you send me questions. Someone asked me to comment on the ACH, aka Jordan Miles situation. Here's the deal. I can respect when a wrestler doesn't like the hand they've been dealt in WWE and they want out. I get that completely. I do. But this is a young man who claims all this oppression of minorities in the company and things like that. And I saw a great meme put on Facebook where it was like Booker T and Rey Mysterio and Kofi Kingston only this year and other men of color and women of color who have had an opportunity to hold some of the most prestigious championships in the history of the business. Sasha Banks is one of the most decorated women's champions ever. You know, people like that, like they really are shining, wonderful examples of the cultures that they represent. And I think that ACH or Jordan Miles, whatever you want to call him, I think he went a little too far. I really do. Now I get it. He's not happy with what he's doing. But by the way, this is the guy who won the tournament this summer to get a chance to face Adam Cole. So clearly, and that was right before he got, I don't know if it was an emotional thing or what it is. Something in his private life bothered him. Right before that, he had this great opportunity to be in the ring with Adam Cole, the NXT champion. So I don't see the oppression that he's talking about. Now, with the conversation about the t-shirt, I get it. Like when you're WWE, you have to be incredibly cautious about what you put out there on merchandise. You can't just claim ignorance. Oh, I didn't know this was going to be a horrible. No, you can't do that. You're a big multinational, publicly traded company. You have people who are supposed to review everything you do and make sure it's in line with the values that your stockholders expect you to have. That t-shirt, listen, if it was on gray, it probably would have looked fine. On white, it probably would have looked fine. The minute you put it on a black t-shirt, it looks wrong. And I've seen people debate it over and over and over online. You need to understand what people would term a microaggression, where you inadvertently, sometimes unintentionally even, and I'm not saying whether it's intentional or not, but where you accidentally or unintentionally cause someone to have a discomfort in something you're doing that may not ring a bell to you, but does to other people. A big multinational corporation has to be cognizant of these types of things, and they cannot let them happen on their program. And so in that way, I actually agree with him being frustrated and upset. I think it was inappropriate, but there are better ways to handle it. And I think this was ridiculous. Now he's been released. He's back on the indie scene. More power to him. But I think a lot of his hate and frustration is misplaced. And I don't think it's at least his push in the company was less of him being held down than he was making it out to be. The t-shirt, I got no problem with him being upset. That's fine. If you want to leave over the t-shirt, leave over the t-shirt. But all the other comments were a little bit far for me. Somebody who went way too far that I also got a question about was Jim Cornette. Anybody who didn't pay attention to the NWA Power controversy, he made a statement about Trevor Murdoch being the only man who can ride across Ethiopia on like a scooter with a bucket of chicken or something like that. That's a horrible statement. What were you thinking, Jim Cornette? And then to make matters worse, he comes out on his podcast and defends the joke, saying, I told that joke for 30 years now. Well, Jim, you're a brilliant mind in the business and your contributions cannot be overstated. However, it's 2019. We are a much more evolved society. And there are sensibilities that you have to have for people who could feel a certain way about the messages that you're sending. So here's the thing. I blame the NWA and their production team for not editing out the line to begin with. They had the footage for 2 months and didn't get rid of it. That's insane. But after that, Jim Cornette should never have defended this. This should have been a genuine apology. And you could still qualify it and say, listen, I was thinking with my 1985, reflections that this line that I've used so many times would be okay. I realize that in this day and age, it's completely inappropriate. I'm very sorry to anybody that I offended. And I think people would have been like, wow, Jim Cornette doesn't apologize for anything, but this was a time when he needed to. Don't get me wrong. I remember when I watched, if you've never seen it, the documentary by ECW called Forever Hardcore. It was a great documentary done by Jeremy Borash. And in there was a thing about like the Sandman and Raven's angle where they crucified the Sandman. And they were talking about how like they wanted him to go apologize to the fans for what he did. And he says, that's a problem. If you do something and it doesn't go over, that's fine. You just move on, but it is what it is. This is not like that. This is not some angle. You made a statement that is racially insensitive. You own it. You apologize and you try to make amends for it. Now, look, I have no problem with him leaving the company. He said he wasn't happy to begin with. Great. Wonderful. Leave. But don't exacerbate the problem by acting like it's okay because it was okay 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 10 years ago or a year ago or a day ago. It's 2019. We need to breed tolerance. We need to encourage the unity of a humanity and not continue to use metaphors and things of the past that only serve to divide us. It wasn't okay to make fun of starving people in 1985, but our insensitive society in 1985 was accepting of those jokes back then. We're not anymore. You wouldn't make fun of Ethiopian people now if they're starving. You wouldn't make fun of anybody when they're starving. You feel bad for people who are starving. They're not a punchline. So, I've said my bit on Jim Cornette. Finn Balor in the news talking about how he thinks he has about 8 years left in him. I don't know how long he's got left, but if he continues to perform the way he did at NXT TakeOver, I'm all in. I'd love to see him as long as possible. I thought he was fantastic. His moveset is very similar and almost identical to what he had before, but he looked more angry, more gruff in the ring, and I liked it. I was a little surprised he wasn't on the Survivor Series team. Maybe that's just to keep him away from people he's been in the ring with recently, but I thought he easily should have replaced Damian Priest if you're really trying to make an NXT team. I don't think Damian Priest was ready for, Survivor Series exposure, but I'm not the booker, so I don't get to make these decisions. Nikki Cross has signed a new multi-year contract with WWE. Congrats to her. Hopefully they find a way to tap into her character and make more out of her because they haven't yet. And I think they had an opportunity. Alexa Bliss gets injured, who, by the way, backstage at Raw tonight, they could have gone so many places with her and Bliss. We'll see where they go from here on out, but hopefully they do something of value with her. Rusev, on the other hand, has made it clear he has not signed a new WWE deal. And I don't know if that's him just messing with the media or if it's legit. If it's legit, WWE better make an offer because he's the kind of guy who could show up on another company and really move the needle for that brand. All Elite Wrestling would be foolish not to snag Rusev if he became a free agent. Absolutely insane. WWE better get on it. AAA superstar Flamita has signed a 1-year deal with Ring of Honor. That's a huge get for them. It's been a whole week of signings. King Mo signed. King Mo is leaving mixed martial arts and going into MLW. Tom Lawler, who they were having a contract impasse and he wasn't signing. Now he has signed an extension with MLW. So all these signings recently make it so you see the competitive nature of the wrestling industry right now. Surprisingly, AEW is the one company that didn't have any signings recently. So, and they've been very transparent. There's nobody out there that they're like chomping at the bit to get. And that's fine. They don't have to. They've been doing it pretty well with what they have. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out over time. Tessa Blanchard being the number one contender for the Impact Championship. I got a question about how I feel about this. I have a tough time for a very weird reason. One, I do truly believe in my heart that at some point Tessa Blanchard will end up in WWE. And if she does, having I don't want to say a men's world championship because obviously Impact Wrestling doesn't feel that way and Lucha Underground didn't feel that way and some other companies don't feel that way. But let's be honest, the time-honored tradition is there's a championship for the men's division, one for the women's division. And I'm like a traditionalist when it comes to that. I don't like seeing men beat up on women in a Me Too movement era of society. Men shouldn't be beating up on women. And for kids to see it makes it so it justifies it them. So I don't want to see that. Now, I love her character. I think she's one of the, if not the best female wrestler in the world. but I don't want to see her as the Impact Wrestling champion, because when she goes to WWE, I want them to talk about all of her accolades, and they can't. If she becomes Impact Wrestling champion, which I suspect they may actually do, is give her that championship. I can't think of any other reason to make her number one contender. They already did the match previously, so there's no reason to do it again. So unless you're going to give her the belt, I think that's a horrible idea. I do want to see her in the ring with Charlotte Flair. I want to see her with Becky Lynch. I want to see her with Bayley. I want to see her with Sasha Banks and Asuka and all these people. And at some point, I think we can have that opportunity, but please don't give her the Impact World Championship. And the final thought of the night on Impact Wrestling, because I'm so annoyed with this. On tomorrow night, November 26th episode, they're having a throwback episode with all these stupid 1980s sounding names and match conditions. It's just another episode of Impact. If you were going to bring people in for that episode that were from the 80s and legitimately do a throwback episode, I'd actually be okay with that. This is not what that is. This is a bunch of current guys changing their name for a night, doing matches named after things from the past that have no real consequence. Like, there's a loser leave town match, but whoever loses that is not actually leaving Impact Wrestling. So it's really stupid. I hate the idea. So hopefully they have something else better in their bag of tricks, because I have no interest in this throwback episode, and they really were building up some momentum for me. And I like their product, but this, not a fan. So that's all we got for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce every show that we put up as far as the music is concerned. Always check out Beazle Games on fro-wrestling.com. Our contributor, our sponsor, they give us these great games, and they have one out called Sketchy People, kind of like a cross between Pictionary and, I don't know, like Chutes and Ladders kind of thing. Check that out. Pick up a copy right before Christmas. Great addition to the family game night events. And AlleyRepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today. They service skee-ball, pinball, arcade games. They do it all, and their work is top quality. Check them out. AlleyRepair.com. If you are thinking about college or a change of career, you need some higher education training, hit up my sister website, frolifeplanning.com, where we'll take care of all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking time with us this evening. If you want to check out a great local show, don't forget to click the Indie Events tab on fro-wrestling.com for shows coming to an area near you. You get that up close and personal feel of a cool private show. Check those out today. Support indie wrestling. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.